Welcome to Jumping into Life. Today I have one of my dear friends, Miss Marilyn Osborne. We're going to be talking about healing, specifically the road to healing. And it's an important topic for this generation, this era, because there's so much pain out there and people hurting. And I thought it'd be great to have someone who is experienced in helping people heal. And you can get more information on this podcast, what this podcast is about, by going to jumpingintolife.com. And into is spelled N as a Nancy 2. And you can see my logo, jumpingintolife.com. Now, let me welcome the esteemed Marilyn Osborne. Marilyn, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Alan. And, I must say it's a delight to be here today. And I say that because you said it perfectly. You said there's people are hurting, and there's a lot going on. I've had a heck of a week this week. You may have too. I've talked to friends who've had a heck of a week. And so it's a little refreshing to be able to just sit here and talk about how to navigate times,
yes.
To bring a little light to some of the darkness that's out in the world and some of the darkness that's even in our lives that we're feeling. So thanks for allowing me to speak from my experience and to just be here with you today.
And just by what Marilyn just said is why she is a perfect guest for this episode. Now, Marilyn, am I lying? You know what you're talking about. We've known each other for a long time, and we've helped each other out emotionally, spiritually. Right. And so what you said is actually true. And that's why I truly wanted you to come on the show to talk about healing and the road to healing.
Yes.
So before we get to your background, let's talk about you personally. Who is Marilyn Osborne?
Well, I thought about that question because I knew you would ask.
Okay.
And so what comes to mind for me is that I'm a woman now of a certain age.
Okay.
Who's seeking to be the very best version of herself.
Okay.
And so I'm sure you've heard people say that before. So for me, that means I'm learning what that is. My life has shifted, it's changed. You've known me for a very long time. And when my son was 3 years old, we were neighbors. My son is now 28, and I'm a grandmother with two grandchildren. And, I work a full-time job. I'm a sister. I'm an aunt. I'm a great aunt. I'm a spiritual leader. There's a lot of, I'm wearing a lot of hats now. So learning to be the best version of myself it looks different each day. So I'm just on a different road now, and it's a journey.
And I've seen that journey because you've actually gone through some training. Why don't you talk about the training that you've had to help you on that road to discuss what we're going to be talking about today?
There's a saying that says you're either pushed by your pain or pulled by your passion.
Wow. Okay.
And so, and through my life experiences, it has been both. And so, and I'm sure that's with everybody. But one of the journeys or the roads that I was on, being pushed by pain, led me to read a lot of different self-help books. I've always been a very avid reader. And so Susan Taylor, back in the day, she was the editor of Essence, and I
remember her.
You remember Susan?
Is that magazine still around?
I don't know. I think it might be. I don't know where Susan is, but she wrote a lot of great, books. And
she was a great leader.
She was a great leader, very graceful. And so
what is, because we don't know if she's deceased.
Yes. I didn't mean it that way. So. I would read some of her books. Also read books from Iyanla Vanzant, who talked a lot about healing. And
she has a show, right? Is what, Heal My Life or something like that?
She had a show, Iyanla Fix My Life, and now she's doing some other work. She no longer is doing the show, but she's doing some other things in the community. And so part of that journey for me led me to do a weekend workshop called Wonder Woman that Iyanla sponsored many years ago.
Okay.
And so
like the superhero?
Well, women, we have superpowers. So,
Okay.
so I did that for a weekend, a Friday through Sunday. And then it was at that time I learned that she actually had a spiritual institute. So I did that for 4 years, flying from Houston, Texas to Baltimore, Maryland, every weekend for 4 years.
And you did it religiously.
Religiously. For the first 2 years, the program was personal development. So it was really digging into your own stuff, looking into the mirror of yourself, and healing those things, because you got to heal yourself before you can attempt to heal anybody else. And then,
was that daunting for you? Like, was that, I guess it was a self-realization exercise, or how did that work? Looking at
exercise
yourself?
is a cute word for for that.
It wasn't
experience.
an exorcism, was it?
That's what it felt like.
Was it an exorcism?
No, but you know what? We learn who we are.
Okay.
By the people who raised us, right? Our parents, our grandparents, whomever that is, and then the community for which we live. So that's who we learn who we are. And then if we grow up in church like I did, you learn more about who you are. I learned that God was righteous, and I learned that I was a sinner.
Oh, wow.
And I learned that, if I lived right.
That's kind of matter of fact.
Matter of fact, well, I mean, is that not what we
it is what it is, but yeah, it's kind of, yeah.
And so that's what I learned, that growing up, that's what I learned about that. And so
the matter of fact about the sinner part, that's what
right.
That's
God is righteous, we are sinners, saved by grace is what we hear. And then and I learned that if I lived right or attempted to live right, that, one day, by and by, I'd meet this God. And so
I heard he's a nice guy.
I learned that God is a nice guy, because growing up, hearing that I'm a sinner and believing that I was a sinner, you're saved by grace, always trying to do what you think is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And, that's not always what you do, but you try.
Yeah.
And so jumping forward back to the school with the Iyanla, at that point, I started to learn different things about God. As I learned more about me, as I learned to heal some of the things that were within me, I started learning about God in different ways. I learned about a God who was loving, and a God who was forgiving, and a God who looked at me as the daughter in whom he was well pleased, as opposed to just seeing myself as what I, quote unquote, was that sinner.
Yeah.
And so being able to learn from that perspective and learn more about a God who loves me, a God that's not so far away but closer to me, that God that lives within me. So there was a lot of different things that I learned on that journey. So that was a part of my healing process, just learning more about who God, other aspects of God.
Yeah.
And from then on, many years later, I finished. Well, after finishing that program, I became an ordained minister through that program, and then later on.
Now, do I refer to you as Reverend Osborne or Marilyn? Can I say Marilyn?
You can say Marilyn. Okay. Still Marilyn.
Okay.
And then there's another program I studied emotion. I studied motion code, energy healing, and so that's a certification that I have where I do energy healing. And
now,
so,
what is energy healing?
Well, everything is energy, right? So energy healing is identifying energy blocks within us. Say, for instance, you have a feeling that's not fully expressed. You ever seen kids or somebody get angry, or somebody does this and they like suppressing all of that intensity of that,
I see
that energy.
Adults do that.
That's true. And so, though that energy, it doesn't, we learned that in Science 101. Energy transforms. It doesn't just, it doesn't go away. So that energy can form into like little balls and just take what we call blocked or stuck energy within the body. So energy healing is identifying those blocks and supporting a person and releasing those. And so, so that's another form of healing.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to have you elaborate on what that was.
Exactly. Not a problem.
So you continue on with the certifications. You got certified
as an emotion code practitioner.
Okay.
And that's what it is, identifying those, what we call trapped emotions or blocked emotions, and supporting a person in releasing those energy blocks.
Now, before we talked, I knew that you did a lot of things in the healing arena, and I didn't know that there was such thing as as an emotional coach. So speak about what an emotional coach
Well, it's
is.
emotional. It's emotion code.
Code, CODE.
Emotion code. Yeah, and
Oh,
this is
okay.
a technique that was discovered by a Dr. Bradley Nelson, and
Is he your brother? I'm just, not that it matters.
no, he's not. A brother from another mother.
Okay.
And so it's a really powerful technique in identifying those energy blocks and supporting people in releasing them. And so I was first introduced to it by a friend of mine who knew a woman who was practicing, and she did some work with her. I did some work with her. And some of the release can be very subtle. Some of it can be really like instantaneous, and then some of it is subtle, depending on what those releases are. And then years later, I began working with another practitioner, and who took it a little step further. And so I started studying with him. And the transition for me from just becoming a person that was going to them to get healed and beginning to study was because when I was open. I was open to the process, and I thought it was a very powerful process. And I said, well, there are so many people that I know that may not be open to it, that are not familiar to the process, that are not familiar with healing, different healing modalities, but they trust me. And so they trust me, and they know that I'm not doing anything that's not, that's so far-fetched.
Yeah.
And so the reason I studied is because I could help those people. I could help family, or I could support friends who may not be open to that, but could definitely benefit from it. And so.
Now, when you say openness, and you were open to it,
right.
how do you know if someone is truly open to it and not being forced to by like a family member or a friend, that they genuinely want to have their emotion code diagnosed?
I'll just speak from my experience.
Okay.
Most of the people that I interact with are people that are open to the process. Because it's very clear when somebody's not open to doing something, when somebody's pushing them to do something, and so
there's a lot of good actors out there.
Yeah, and so, but it's for them. So there's no real reason to come. If someone comes and says, "Oh, well, my mom came and told me to do this," then we talk about it. What does that look like for you? What does that mean for you? What do you want? And so going from that, and I have to be clear, let me say this, I'm not a doctor or a therapist, so I can't diagnose, but I can converse with someone about what they're going through, and then we can talk about it from there. Yeah.
So when you say that someone may openly admit that they've been a little bit pushed into that, do you see that as a sign that they may be open to it, even though they acknowledge that I'm only here because? And how do you break through that apprehensiveness? Because it seems like they're making you aware why they're there, but then it's a snippet of them maybe screaming out, I'm going to give this a shot. How can you tell?
If they're willing. And that's what I say. You don't always have to be. That was a powerful awareness for me on my healing journey, is understanding that when I'm willing, God can do a lot with my willingness. I may not always be ready, but am I willing? Is there a part of me that's open to believing that this could work for me?
Yeah.
I could heal, or, God can do what I can't do. Could this be it? And so if a person is willing, then I believe that's a powerful statement right there. I'm willing. And so it's just discussing with them, are you open? And then explaining the process. What can I do to help you understand the process? And if they're not ready, no judgment.
Yeah.
If you're not ready and you're not interested and you don't feel like it's for you, no judgment.
So it seems like openness is truly the key to healing. Or am I wrong?
I believe that that's a very big component, because, it can be a challenge trying to force things on people, And sometimes when a person doesn't know, you see people trying to do interventions with people and all of those things. Some people are just not aware. And so I believe being willing and open is a huge component of the process. And sometimes it's just you don't always have to know the how or the what. Just I'm willing. God, I'm willing. Mm-hmm. My spiritual foundation is one with God. Everybody has different beliefs. Yeah. But mine is that I can go to God and just say, God help.
So you mentioned two things: spirituality, referring to God, mm-hmm. and my words, grace and mercy to help you on the road to healing.
Right.
You also referred a couple of times to a process. So let's talk about the process, because a lot of people out there probably want to know, like, hey, what are they talking about? What is this healing process? What does that entail? What does it look like?
It looks different for different people.
Okay.
It could just looks different for different people. It's just being open to allowing God to heal those areas in your life. Sometimes it's something that, people might be sad or depressed, or are you willing to allow that to change? Mm-hmm. And so that process can completely look different. I learned the word help, that one word help is a prayer. God help.
Is a prayer?
Is a prayer. Help. We don't have to say all of these, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those are great prayers, but God help. And so there are so many different ways that God can do for us what we can't do for ourselves. And so there's no just, the process can look different in so many different ways.
So that's interesting. Help being a prayer. I never looked at the word help being a prayer. That's the shortest prayer
Yeah, God said you call, I'll answer. If you call, I will answer.
Okay, I get it, yeah.
So help.
Yeah.
He hears us.
Wow, that's deeply profound. I never looked at it that way, but you're right. Scripture does say, ask, mm-hmm. and help is a request.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty deep, Marilyn. You give me a different viewpoint on the word help. That's because you're right. Sometimes we say all these things, the God of Isaac and Jacob, and 10 minutes later, and all we just have to say is just help.
Because sometimes we're conditioned to think we have to pray a certain way. That we can't just talk to God like you and I are sitting here talking. We think we have to have the scriptures behind it and all of those different things. And we can just ask for help. How many times have you had a friend go through something and you said, why didn't you ask me? Have you ever had that situation? Why didn't you ask for help? And they was like, I didn't want to ask, or I didn't know.
Yeah.
Ask. It's a simple request.
That's deep. You can see it on my face. I'm just really still trying to process that, because there have been times when I've reached out and prayed, and all I had to do was just say help. And that would have been sufficient.
Right. Because sometimes I don't know what I need help with. I just know I need help. Sometimes I'm just in it, and yeah. I don't know the answer. I don't know how to figure it out. So sometimes I just help. I don't know what the next step is. I can look at this ocean of problems and like ocean.
Yeah. I've been there, done that.
And sometimes it's just a little shallow pool, but it feels like an ocean.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we can look at that and not know where. I don't even know where to begin. I told a friend of mine once, she was complaining about some things going through her life, and I said, hey, listen, you can't go into your home, go into every room, open the closets, and take everything out and put it in the center floor, and try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
So sometimes life feels like that, like everything is just piled in the center of the room, and I don't know where to even begin. God help.
Yeah, because when you say that one word, God will know what you're asking for help for.
Yeah, God knows how to direct you. God knows what you need. He knows our needs before we even ask, right?
That's
before we even ask. And so if I'm just asking help, I'm trusting you to guide me for the next step because I don't know. I may say I need to go left and maybe I need to go right. Maybe I need to stand still.
Yeah.
Help. And I'm asking God to come in and guide me. Give me what I need right now in this right now moment.
Yeah.
In this moment. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves because we want to know what to do next week. And I don't even know what to do in the next 5 minutes. So let alone I'm asking God to, next week I got this going on, this going on, and all this stuff. And I'm sitting here, at my wit's end in this right now moment. So God, help me now. Stay present to this right now moment. God is with us.
So going back to process, it seems like the first step is to be open to the possibility of healing.
Right.
The second is asking for help. And how I translate asking for help is realizing that you can no longer do it on your own.
Yeah.
But, because there's a lot of people out there, because I've been there, done that,
right.
believe that I can do it on my own. It's not just your physical ability to do it on your own, but it seems like there's some spirituality involved.
Of course.
Because you're asking for help from God. Do I have that right?
Yeah, because for me, it's asking God to do for me what I can't, in many ways, can't do for myself. And also asking God to do for me the things I think I can do for myself. I am a recovering control freak. And so, a tad bit. And so with that being said, I'm trying to fix it.
Yeah.
I typically have been a person that has a lot on her plate. So I'm having to maneuver what's on my plate. I'm not waiting to see if John's going to do it or Bob's going to do it or Mary's going to do it. I'm handling it all.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like being able to surrender that and say, okay, God, let me allow you to direct my steps. Let me allow you to order my steps. And I'm not sure if I answered your question or if I diverted.
But you gave me a third component, openness, the willingness to accept spiritual guidance.
Right.
And a third key was, you just said it just slipped my mind. Not knowing that you can't do it on your own.
Do it on your own.
Right.
Right.
The willingness to be open to that sense of, I guess, vulnerability to know that there's things that you can't that you know you can do it. But then, how does somebody realize, okay, I need spiritual guidance when they know they can do it? Like, I know I can pick up this water bottle. But then what does this water bottle represent? It could be half full, half empty.
Right.
I may need to get more water because I'm about to go walking for 2 or 3 miles, or I may just need to leave it the way it is and walk a block. But I know that I need to walk for the cardiovascular benefit. So how does someone know, like, I know I can do it, but do I go this far or that far?
Well, here's the thing for me. It's one thing to know you can do it yourself, and it's a whole other thing to know you don't have to.
Okay.
You really don't have to. There's a lot of things you can accomplish on your own, but why? When help is so prevalent right there for you. And for me, that's just big, knowing that help is there. What I said earlier, a lot of times we are pushed by pain or pulled by passion. And so that's one way to know, oftentimes it's when we're in a situation that we feel a sense of pain, a sense of loss, that we actually seek help. Otherwise, when we think we got it all together, sometimes I'm not going to bother God with that, or I'm not going to even bother my friend with that. So sometimes it's just being in a situation or evaluating your life. I remember when part of starting my spiritual journey was beyond the church, was looking at life. I was working, I was a mom, things seemed okay for me, but I remember telling my coworkers, there has to be more to life than this. I remember saying that I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't like thrilled about life either.
Yeah.
So it's like there has to be more to life than this. And so I'm in the phase of life wanting to explore the more. And so know that there is more. There's more joy. There's more love. There's more peace. There's more than what we are experiencing in this moment. There's more. So are you open to the more? Are you open to experiencing more? Some people are content right where they are, and that's fine too.
So it seems like that's the key. Like, even though you can do it on your own, are you open to more? Because at a certain point, you have to realize I'm in a place where it's stale. Right? I'm not moving forward. I'm not moving backwards. I'm just where I am. But then, like you said, you realize you wanted more. So someone who doesn't know that they are allowed to have more, because God does say, if you ask, and, seeking, you should find. So how does someone know that there is more out there when they think, oh, I've made it, I've done this and done that?
But here's the thing with that, there's no judgment in that, because that's okay. God loves us right where we are. So if you're okay with where you are, fine. There's no judgment. But if you're discontent with life, or if you feel like there's more to it than that, or I'm missing out on this, there is more. There's just more for us. One of the biggest things that I find that creates discontent in our lives is believing that we should be in a place that we're not. Not accepting life for what it is. I'm this age and I should have this by now.
Yeah.
And
well, that's a normal phenomenon,
and
right?
I should be that by now. But is it?
I would think it is. Like, at the point of my life, I'm 60. I'm like, okay, well, I love to travel. I'm able to travel. I'm God has blessed me to do some things that a lot of people aren't able to do. And not that I grew up in a privileged household. Right. I told you my background. We grew up in Chicago in the projects.
Right.
Shout out to Augill Garden.
I'm not from there. I don't know what that sign means. I don't know what that meant, but I just.
So I literally lived on both sides of the railroad track. To
Okay.
Say. We moved from the projects, and then we moved to Texas when I was 12. And to the burbs, and so I've literally seen both sides. But one thing, my parents and neither one of them can't remember which one said this, but they always told. I remember them saying, one of them saying, "Don't judge. Your feet can fit in their shoes."
Wow, that's powerful.
And I took that to heart because even though we were living in the projects, my dad was going to school full time, working full time. My mom was, stay at home mom, and she would go to the elementary school we were at to volunteer. But and so we went to summer camp, and we were exposed to a lot of things.
Right.
We dressed nice. I mean, you weren't walking out my parents' house looking like a bomb. So I say all that because some people may think, okay, well, I'm at a point in my life where I'm content, but I don't know that I should be seeking more, or because you said if they're fine with it, that's okay. But sometimes God may want, like you said, push you out your comfort zone. So how does someone know that they're being pushed by God to do more, or just they're going to remain still where they are?
Well, I think a couple of things with that. Number one, I feel like if God is speaking, God speaks to us in the way I always pray, God speak to me in a way that I get it, because I can get in my head and analyze stuff. God, you already know that about me, so speak to me in a way that I know it's you, that you're speaking to me to move in this direction. And so I believe that with anybody, if God is speaking to you, you know that it's God speaking to you and nudging you. And sometimes those nudges, when we ignore them, they get louder. Or it becomes from nudge to shove. And so, but
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because, a lot of people out there may think that it's a soft spiritual nudge, but sometimes it could be an actual physical event. Like you may be at work and God has, for instance, tithing. Some people are strong up tithing, some people aren't. But, if God's laid on your heart to tithe because he wants to see if you're going to actually give or do more with the increases he gives you. But first, he has to know, are you going to tie with your minimum wage job before he gives you something else,
Right.
And so you may just need a reminder that, hey, you said you was going to tie, you know about tying, but you're not tying. And so, oh, I lost my job. That's a push. But before you got the push, it may have been a nudge like, oh, well, they cut my hours.
Right.
And so some of those pushes and nudges can be quite substantial.
They can, and I've heard plenty of stories where they lead people to creating, businesses and things like that they've always had that thought in their mind, and maybe they were just afraid to do it. So what seemed to be a tragedy when they lost a job was a very triumphant moment later on in their lives. So God will, I feel like God speaks to us all individually. And again, I feel like if someone's okay with where they are, then that's okay. That word should, I feel like we have to be so careful in using that word should, because should is a judgment. I should be here. I should be further along. You should have done that, or he should have done that. It's all these shoulds. And it's like, what was your grandfather saying about you could be in their shoes? Or
my parents,
Yeah. And so being aware of that. And I feel like getting back to like on the road to healing, a lot of the judgment that we have is on ourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of times we say stuff about ourselves that we would not say to someone else. Oh, that was so stupid. How many times have you may have said it or thought it about something you did or did not do? If you did something, I might not be as harsh in my words and saying that was stupid. I might be like, that's okay. You tried.
Yeah.
You tried, and it was a good effort, and keep your head up. But over here, I'm giving myself a hard time. Right. So a lot of times we got to learn to give ourselves the grace that we would give others. And so that's what I'm saying, being mindful. You don't have to, this thing about healing and change, it's an individual experience. And if, I'm happy in my life as it is, and I'm not being led by God to do anything differently than what I'm doing, because God can use me right where I am. If I'm prospering where I'm planted, then that's fine too.
So can a nudge or a push by God be part of the healing process?
Of course. God uses everything. God doesn't allow anything that we go through to go wasted. Everything that we go through, the Bible says it will give us beauty for our ashes. So every single thing we go through, God can use for his glory and our glory. And so it's being, again, my favorite word for today, being open.
Yeah.
Am I open to learning? So many times we ask the question, why am I going through this? Instead of, God, what is it that you would have me learn in this experience?
That's part of healing.
That's a totally different question. Well, why am I going through this? That's some judgment. I shouldn't be going through this. Why me?
Yeah.
But what am I to learn? Because everything I go to, there's an opportunity for me to learn something.
Yeah.
Am I open to learning so that I don't have to repeat it? I get it, and I can move forward.
Is healing a one-time thing?
Oh, man. We wish, right? Oh, my God. We wish it was, right? We really wish it was. I was talking to a friend not long ago, and she went through some program, and she said, we got to talking about some things from my childhood. And she said, I thought I had healed that. Yeah. And I said, healing is like an onion. It's those layers. You peel one layer off and you got it. And then, years later, you may come back up and it's like, I'm still dealing with that. And that can be very disheartening.
Yeah.
Because you do feel like, oh, I'm going through this again. But it can be a layer. And so now we're just healing it on a deeper level than what we did before.
How do you tell someone, for instance, like your friend, she thought she was healed from whatever that situation was, then she may go, because some people do blame God and say, well, I guess you did half a job. I wouldn't tell God that.
Right.
But, because when they say, well, I thought I was healed, but I guess he didn't hear my prayer. He didn't answer my prayer because I'm back at this situation again. Mm-hmm. And you said peeling the onion back. Mm-hmm. So why doesn't, in your opinion, God just pour all the onion back to the little seed, get to the root problem, and then that person's completely healed the first time?
Every situation is different, and sometimes maybe we can't handle all of that at one time.
Okay.
We may not be. I don't know what the reason is. God has his reasons and his purposes for everything, again, that we experience. And so, I can just say it's a process. When we think about grief, and they talk about 7 stages of grief, and that you can go through one stage and then go to the next and then come back to another stage.
Yeah.
And so why is that? We want things to be, we live in such a microwave society. We want things to be so quick and so fast. And it's not always that's not always the process. And so, again, what would you have me to learn?
Yeah.
God, what would you have me to learn as I go through this? And how can I glorify you as I go through this? How can I become better as I go through this? Asking for those asking those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at it from, I can't wait for this to be over. And, we can feel that way. We're human.
Yeah.
But also just having that other side to know that God is always working things out for our good. And that's one thing, people ask the question, what would you tell you said earlier, you're 60, and if you look at yourself now, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? What would you tell your 30-year-old self? Have you ever thought of that? What would you tell yourself? And, one of the things I would tell myself is that it's going to be okay. It's all going to work out.
Yeah. I remember you.
What do you remember?
I have a young man. He's my barber. He's going to be coming on the show and talking about when he turned 18. He didn't know what to do. And I remember telling you, like, I was sitting in this chair. He's like, "Oh yeah, Mr. Allen, can I come on your show?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're 23. You're young. You ain't been through nothing. What do you have to talk about?" And I don't know if you recall what you told me. Alan, everybody was an exceptional child.
Right.
At such a young age, like you were.
Right.
And so, and that was interesting because it's based on your life experiences. Like I saw the world differently, and to me, the world was a puzzle, and I was able to visualize a puzzle, put it together in my head. So there's a lot of things I didn't experience at 20 and 30, but I had experienced at 40 and 50.
Okay.
So to answer your question, what I would tell myself at 20 and 30, nothing. But because I'm an exceptional young man. No, I'm just kidding. But because I saw the world differently. I learned the world differently.
Right.
And so I saw it one way, but then as I got older, I learned how it truly was. And so can you speak upon how people seeing one thing, but then learning that it's something else? Because do you think that may affect their mental state or their emotional intuitiveness?
You're saying, let me make sure I understand that question. You're saying seeing...
Yeah, because like I see this bottle is half full. It may be half full. It's empty now. But it may be half full. But then, some people may say it's half empty. So we see in the world differently. Like we talked about, what God's laid on me not to talk about in the show. But I'm just going to talk about politics just a little bit. There's the right and the left, as they call themselves. They see the world differently, right? That's what I mean.
Okay.
So like when I was younger, I saw the world one way. I thought it was okay. Like like my parents taught us, if you do the right thing, you do good in school, you go to college, you do this and do that, then these things will happen for you. When as I got older, I started to see peelings, dents and those.
Right.
And my belief system as far as how the world was. You can do everything, but then it doesn't always work out the way it's supposed to do. And that can affect someone's ability to ask for help.
Right.
Because you thought you knew how the world was, but then you learned that it wasn't.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by, seeing and learning.
Right. I think with that, it's sometimes things work out. And I'm using the word sometimes, but it's all the time. Things work out. They just don't always work out like we think they should. And again, that last word I used was should, which is a judgment. And so, how many times have you been in situations, I've been in situations that you wanted something to work out, or it could be a relationship. You just wanted that relationship to work out, and it didn't work out the way you thought it would. And then later on, you learn things or other things about yourself, about the other person, and you're like, man, God, thank you. I'm glad. It may not have worked out, but it really worked out.
So it's an opportunity to heal, to learn who you are. And
right.
And I guess, is it a cry for help when you don't, for instance, you're in a relationship and you don't see it the way the other person sees it, but then you find out after you broke up, well, thank you, God, he or she was not good for me. So it was, I guess it's not a cry for help. I'm thinking out loud. It's not a cry for help.
Right.
Maybe it's, what would you call it? If it's not a cry for help, it's not like openness. It's a learning experience.
Right. With that, it's a learning experience, and it's learning because you're saying that you thought the world was one way, but it's another way. It's all about your perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's about perspective, and that's important. How we see the world, how we see ourselves. I talked about that a minute ago. How sometimes we judge ourselves so harshly more than we do others. So how do we see the world? What is it that does that lens that we're looking through look like?
I guess because I was having a hard time trying to articulate, but I know what I want to articulate. Is, do you find fault in yourself because it didn't work out? Because you misunderstood how you saw the world or the situation? How does someone cope with blaming themselves? Because you say, you use the word should. You use that multiple times. You should not, or you should. And that person's going to always say to themselves, because they're trying to rationalize or justify what they saw, what didn't make sense. Like, I should have saw this, or I should have done that. How does somebody reconcile that? Because that's real. And everyone doesn't know someone like you. Like, I know you. I can call you up. But how does someone know, I'm just thinking, okay, that's normal because that was my view of the world.
Right. There's a saying that when we know better, we do better. And I truly believe when we know better, we do better. There's also a saying that you got to know that you know that you know that you know. We say that in the church. You got to know that you know that you know that you know. And so a lot of times we may know better, but we don't know better. It's one thing to know something intellectually, and it's another thing to know it with every fiber of your being. And so sometimes in relationships, that's what we chose at the time. That's where we were. Maybe there's something in us that gravitated to that person and later learned that wasn't the person for us. Life, it's a journey, and we're constantly growing and we're constantly evolving. We are spiritual beings living a human existence in a human experience. And so we're constantly growing into being more like God has created us to be. And so it's a journey. And I think we get it confused.
I would say it's a cycle because...
Okay.
And this is because we have someone with because there's people who get into the same type of situation, same type of personality. It's a cycle, but they don't know that they don't know that they don't know. It's a cycle, but they need to be healed to break that cycle. But their view of the world is like, this is how I see it, and this is the only thing I know. How do they know they don't know, they don't know, they don't know?
Again, we push by our pain at times. Sometimes it's a pain. You knock your head, against something hard enough, and long enough. Sometimes you say, okay, I got to do this differently. Sometimes there's no way to support that person other than just being there. I'm going to be here if it works out for you. I'm going to be here if it doesn't. I'm going to be here
Okay.
to dance at your wedding, and I'm going to be here and be a shoulder for you to cry on until a person is ready. And again, we're growing and we're evolving. And I think sometimes we mistake the world, and the world is portrayed as something that this journey is going to be something other than what it is. It's going to be perfect. And it's not always like that. That's not real. And so...
But isn't that what we get taught growing up?
Well, and that's what I'm glad you said that. I kind of want to go back, because I started off saying I learned God was righteous and that I was a sinner.
Yeah.
But then I learned that I was the apple of God's eye. I learned that God loves me just as I am. And so that was a healing thing for me. So like you say, we learn certain things growing up, and sometimes we have to unlearn certain things that we've learned. And so when we take that judgment off ourselves, when we recognize and realize that we are children of God and God loves us as we are, He loves me if I'm, the CEO of a company, or He loves me if I'm, just... something less than that. God still loves me, and being able to connect with that within ourselves, because God lives on the inside of all of us, and when we can connect with that within us, we're no longer seeking it without. So many times we're seeking love, we're seeking validation, we're seeking all of these things outside of ourselves, and we're going to fall short every time.
Yeah.
Because if the world can build you up, it can also tear you down. If it can bring you joy, it can also bring you sadness. So your joy, your peace, all of that, once it comes from the inside, it doesn't mean that you won't be disappointed in life. We live in this life, there will be disappointments, but you can recover.
Yeah.
But it's about getting clear on who we really are. And a song we used to sing in church, the world didn't give it to me and the world can't take it away. You laugh, you know that song.
I know the song.
Yeah. It didn't give it to me and it can't take it away. And so
But
that's what we have to
a lot of people feel that the
recover.
world has taken it away.
A lot of people feel that way. And I'm saying,
In certain situations, the world has taken a lot of things that's meaningful to them away. And people.
and that is a part of
How does someone heal from that?
getting my thing is your connection with God. You can't. I don't know how you can survive. There's a lot going on in this world, and I don't know how you can survive without that connection. I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't know how people would do it.
Yeah.
Because I know me having a relationship with God, me knowing and saying God is my foundation. There are times when I'm just at, I've been at my wit's end. And I know God is there. And so I don't know for those who don't have that. My prayer is that they come to know that.
Yeah.
That it's there whether you recognize it or not. God is within you whether you recognize it or not.
How can someone recognize that God is in them? Because you talked about spirituality. What is spirituality, and how does someone know that God's Spirit is with them?
You woke up this morning, you're breathing. You're not doing that on your own. I didn't, push a button and all of a sudden I started breathing.
But, you can have a serial killer wake up this morning and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to kill number 19.
And that's the piece that's it's quite challenging because of free will. And that's something I still scratch my head about at times. Like, God, what's this free will thing? I don't like this because I don't like that these people can do this and do that. But I'm not God, and I'm still learning, and I trust the God that I know.
Free will plays a huge part in how people are healed and how people are hurt. Can you elaborate on the spiritual level, what is free will and how does that control a lot of things that happens to people? Because a lot of people oftentimes blame God on why serial killers they exist. And
yeah, that's a subject I almost want to pass on because it definitely is a tough one, and it's one that I have challenges with myself. It's like, what is this? God, we
Yeah.
need to talk about this.
Yeah.
I have zero understanding
Yeah.
when it comes to this God. But what I understand about free will is that God's not forcing his will on us. He loves us enough to allow us to come to him in our own time. And we would hope that that would be everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's a thing that even for me, it's still tough. It's a tough one. That's one. It's like we need to have a real conversation about that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I wrote a book. In fact, I have it.
You have them.
I have it here. The Vessel. And you're more than you think. All it takes is faith. And you can get it on Amazon. And I have a chapter that talks about, free will
Okay.
and why bad things happen to good people. It's very profound. It was something that I questioned and continue to question. Not so much before writing this book, The Vessel, because I understand now that, because of free will, people have the option to accept God, as you say, or turn away from him. Because there's two forces in this world. There's true, equally powerful forces in this world. It's good and evil, And so when you have a serial killer out there, that person is out there doing things that, they're doing because they are what a lot of people will classify as evil. And then you have people asking, why is this person is allowed to do the things that they're doing? And I just got laid off, but you got these bad people doing these
Right.
things, and they seem to be prospering. And so it's tough, but when the vessel, you mentioned something when we talked before about being a vessel, a spiritual vessel, about connecting people.
Right.
And I think, and you said we're all connected via spirit.
Right.
And so I go back to, because I always wonder, growing up, I was like, well, why is this person seems to be doing all these bad things, but they seem to be doing okay. And I'm trying my best to do everything right, and I'm not okay,
Right.
And so, it took me a long time to get to a point where I can appreciate that God is with me, and although things may not be going the way I would like for them to go, it's a journey.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's the experiences that's
Right.
helping me heal, and healing is judging, because I would say, well, should, like you always say, I'm gonna stop using the word should, because it is self-judgment.
Yeah, it is.
And so that was very prolific on your part to say that. But speak about how we're all connected spiritually, and how you help
Right.
people connect.
Okay, and I'm gonna back up one thing, because you said something that I wanted to speak about.
Okay.
As my belief in regards to that, I do not believe that there are two equally, a good and a bad. I don't believe they're equal.
And when I said equal, God is more powerful than the devil.
Anything,
Right.
God's.
So, yeah.
I've overcome the world.
Yeah.
So the darkness can speak very loudly.
Yes.
And sometimes that's what gets our attention. Sometimes if I read about, and I can't remember, we have these thousands of thoughts that pop in our head daily. And a lot of times we may recall the negative stuff.
Yeah.
You turn on the news, what's the headline? The negative stuff. And so that seems to sometimes speak louder, and that's what we see. But know that just because you don't see God working doesn't mean God isn't working.
Yeah.
And so, but we agree that God is much.
And I'm glad you picked up on that. That's why you're sitting in that chair with this episode.
Your question to me was, how are we all connected?
Right.
I believe that there's one God. And so we are all children of that one God. We are all part of that one head, that one body of God. And so we hear that God is omnipresent, which means God is everywhere.
Right.
And so how is God everywhere? He's here and there. He's in tomorrow and he's in yesterday. How is he that? And we are the hands and feet of God. We are all connected to God. So the Spirit of God, one Spirit, lives in all of us. When God breathed the breath of life into Adam, that breath is still breathing you, and that breath is breathing me today. So we are all connected spiritually by this one God that we know.
So I hear people talk about being spiritually awakened and emotionally in tune. Are they the same?
I don't know. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Spiritually awakened. I don't know if that just means I've become more aware of the spirit within me, and emotionally in tuned. I guess they're in tune with their feelings. So, is it the same? Maybe not exactly, but it could be interrelated.
How not exactly? Because some people may, because there's a lot of people out there, I feel good, but they're not, they're spiritually
Right.
void.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I could be aware that God is good, but I could still not be in touch with my feelings. There, you see people all the time that seem to have a relationship, but then they, kind of disconnected from others. Like, you don't see yourself,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so things like that. So I think that if you're truly connected or in tune, in touch with God, then yeah, you're emotionally, because you're connected. It's all connected.
Yeah.
The emotions, the feelings, God gives us that. And so if we're in tune with God who is within us, there's a difference between saying I believe in a God that's way over there in the sky, and God's over there and I'm over here. Well, you're not really that connected, because you're that's a distant God. But what about the God the aspect of God that lives within us?
Yeah.
That part of God, that's the God that I'm calling on.
So you said something about we talked earlier about how the emotion. Some people may be, and you correct me, which I know you will, if I misquote you. Something about people being consciously aware of the need to seek help or know that they are in distress, but then there's a subconsciousness in them that needs to be. It's an emotional issue it's unresolved. You remember how you worded that?
We talked about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And the conscious mind is that part of us, that we're aware, we think, we know, we see the light in the room, we see this. And then there's an subconscious part of us that records all of our thoughts, and our beliefs are stored there. So a lot of times we may be doing something and I don't even know why I did that. You ever said that? I don't even know why I did that. Or you heard people say that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because our subconscious is driving the car. The thoughts and beliefs that are deep within us are driving the car, and not, consciously. You get in your car. Sometimes I've gotten in my car and said, I'm going to go to the store. And the next thing I know, I'm about to get on the freeway. I'm doing my route to work or something. I'm like, what am I doing? It's just routine. You just get in there and you're not conscious about what you're doing. But see, the subconscious remembers everything. Everything is stored there. So it knows that route. When I went in that direction, I'm about to go here until I woke up, wait a minute, what am I doing? And so a lot of times in life, it's, there's this analogy of this iceberg, and the iceberg, what you see on top is like the conscious mind. I can see that. But below that water,
A lot of turmoil.
that the rest of that iceberg is 90% of that iceberg is below that water. And that's not what you see, right?
So tell my audience, because you've told me, how do you unlock somebody's subconscious mind, help them realize that, hey, there is a deeper issue? Because you said there's always a root problem somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to dig deep.
You just got to dig.
How do you
deep.
help someone? You told me about some exercises that you give people that you help. Why don't you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Part of it is just kind of being really simple, being aware of your thoughts. What am I thinking? Because your subconscious records those thoughts. So what it is am I thinking? So I can reprogram my subconscious mind by starting to think positive thoughts. Let me just focus on what's good and not focus on the negative so much, because every time every thought is being recorded, it's like being a gardener, and every seed that you plant, that's a thought. You plant that seed down in the soil, that's like your subconscious mind. You may forget you planted that seed. You go on off, and then months later, you see something sprouting. And that's how the subconscious mind is. It records these thoughts, and you done forgot about it and went on about your business. And then next thing you know, you're experiencing something in your life.
It pops up, and then now
as a
you're
result of-
subject of a Lifetime movie.
Yeah. That's a good one. Right. It's a result of something you believe.
Yeah.
We have a lot of beliefs that we may not even be aware of, things that we grew up believing. Everybody, and it's not a dig on anybody, because we all do the best that we can with what we know. A lot of times we get older and think, well, my parents did this, and they did the best they could. I'm a parent, so I tell my son I did the best I could with what I knew at that time.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have to unlearn some of the things. And so what we talked about was identifying some of those things. Sometimes when I'm working with someone and they feel like life isn't working, it's like, well, let's talk about that, and let's identify through this process what if there's some energy blocks there. And sometimes there is something that's stored there from 20 years ago or something. That's preventing or hindering them from moving forward in ways that they otherwise, wouldn't know. And so our bodies are designed to really heal themselves. And when we get out of the way, that's exactly what it does. And so when we're able to really release pent up, trapped feelings, energy, blockages, release that, things start to flow.
How do we know when to get out the way? Because when you told me that the first time, I was like, that's deep. How do we know when to get out the way to let our body heal?
Sometimes, have you ever just kept trying and trying and trying? Sometimes it's just about, asking God, what is it? What is it that I am to do? And getting instructions on that. Because sometimes we'll try everything.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation here about something on the way here, and getting out of the way and trusting God.
Yes.
And so just stepping back and trusting God. Sometimes it's you've done all that you know to do. And sometimes it's just that, God, I've done all that I know to do. I'm out.
Yeah.
I still have belief that you can do what I can't do. You can do the impossible. So I've tried everything possible.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to do that, go to that extent.
But you did, but you kind of sort of did, because you said sometimes you just got to bump your head.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
To kind of wake you up.
Sometimes that's exactly what it takes. Because how many times people have tried to, sometimes people will try to tell you, good meaning friends will try to tell you, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah.
And and you go on and do what you want to do anyway. Sometimes it's just experience is the best teacher, they say,
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be a painful lesson. But it's one you can buy.
It's part of the healing process, I guess.
It's part of the process. It's a part of life. It's just a part of life. And I think once we understand that, if we think every day is going to be sunny, we're going to be disappointed, because the rain comes, and the rain is purposeful. I don't have to get out and water my grass or my flowers when the rain comes. It's purposeful. So if we go into life knowing that there's going to be some rainy days, it's not the end of the world. Guess what? That sun is going to shine again. It may not come out tomorrow. It may be 2 days from now. It's going to shine again.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
So it seems like you're saying there's hope at the end of the road.
There's always hope. There's always hope.
Is that the ultimate component in the healing process, hope? Because you said the first is openness, and then help.
Hope, belief, expectancy, all of that, yeah.
So how does someone know that, like, I may have one goal that I want to get out of a counseling session with you, but then with your training expertise, you may realize, I think he or she is not reaching their full potential spiritually. How do you know when
Well, and it,
I'm shooting too short?
right, and it's not a counseling session.
Well,
Clearly, it's a healing session.
Healing session, okay.
So when I'm working with anyone, it's I'm connecting with spirit. So and let spirit guide this because I'm a vessel, and so it's if you're saying I'm stuck in this area or this is what okay, then are you open to me praying about this and connecting with spirit to see if that's what's the priority for
Yeah.
you. And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes they may give me a list of 1, 2, 3, and then spirit may say, well, 3 is the one. Because the way we're looking at it, maybe something needs to happen in another area that we don't see before we can get here. And so it's just really all as it is trusting God and trusting God in that process to say, what is there an energy block here? Is there something here that's prohibiting the flow of your, and that's what it is, prohibiting the flow of the goodness of God in
Yeah.
this area of my life.
So, can I send about a busload of people to your office to get those energy blocks so they can be better people?
Bring them on.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of people thinking right now, like, okay, I need to send this person, that person. But yeah, that's going back to judging and shit.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Because we don't know, like I know my prior guest, Tracy Benoit, the episode was entitled, Is It Okay to Be Alone? There's an underlying reason why somebody's who they are acting the way they're acting. Mm-hmm. And, that's why I wanted you to come on the show. Like, if that person needs to be healed, then they need to know what the processes are or to recognize when they need to go and seek help.
Right.
And that's why I wanted you to come on. And you're saying some great things. You told me about a questionnaire that you have the people who come to you for your sessions. And you go into detail about, I think, a bunch of questions. You pick out 3. Go into.
Yeah, it's just what I call an evaluation sheet, and it's a few areas of life, relationships, spirituality, mental, physical, emotional, different areas of life, and have them look at that and say, okay, what area are you wanting to focus on for this session? And so I typically ask them to give 3. And then from there, we'll connect with them, connect with spirit, and determine identify the areas that are a priority for that session. And so I just work with the person to identify those energy blocks and to support releasing in that.
Now, when you may, as a trained expert, you may say, okay, well, this is what I'm sensing out of the blocks that they checked. Mm-hmm. And they may push back and say, well, no, I think you're wrong. How do you convince someone that, because to me, that doesn't seem like they're open to help.
Yeah.
They're voluntarily, but then they
Right.
don't want to accept the fact that, no, this is the wrong area you need to work on. How do you make them realize that, no, you really want to move forward with healing, we need to start here?
And I'll be honest, I have not had that experience because it's not me thinking, it's me connecting with spirit. And so when spirit, and so I asked them before, I said, are you open to us praying about this? And I will ask, and so spirit guides that whole thing. And so I've never had anybody say, no, you're wrong. They say, oh, okay. And they go with it. And so, and then, after that, sometimes we are able to go into the area that they mentioned. But like I said, sometimes there's things there that we're not even aware of. And God's saying, we got to straighten this up first before we get here. So God directs and orchestrates all of that stuff. So I have not had that experience. Every person that I've been with has been open to saying, hey, I'm here. I'm willing.
So now this is kind of funny and half funny. You have a lot of people say, I've met my soulmate.
Oh gosh.
And that person turns out to be the devil, figuratively speaking.
You say the devil.
And how if someone comes to you and say, or has, generally, if someone was to come to you and ask you, is this person right for me? Because a lot of people out there who are about to get married or marry, and they're like, they're asking themselves, did I make the right decision, or am I making the right decision? And they want to know if that person has some deep-rooted energy blocks. How do you help someone to know or realize that this person may not be the person you want to commit to for a lifetime?
I believe we attract who we are.
Oh,
And so
wow.
if we're attracting who we are. And so this process too is very personal. So it's not something that I can go and say, you're saying, hey, I'm dating Susie over here, and I'm telling you, yes, Susie has this block, this block, this block. You know, it's me. I work with a person via their permission. And so I would never go and say, well, Susie's not right. What is it within you that's attracting Susie? Because whatever it is that's that's you attracted this person to you for a reason. So let's get with you,
Right.
Because because
I'm laughing because, like, they come to you, like, they have some doubt. If they come to you, they have some doubt. So it's something in them that attracts them.
Right.
That's interesting.
And so you already have the answer. If you're coming to me and you're asking the question, you don't even know me.
But they don't know what it is that person is attracted to. What is it that signal or thing that it's like, I don't like this energy in this person, but you're saying energy attracts energy. You said it's the same energy that's been attracted to.
We attract to us who we are. There's something in that person. Say, for instance, and this is a really wild example here. If I steal a pen or some Post-it notes from work every now and then, I take that every now and then, put it in my bag and bring it home, or some paper from my printer.
Yeah.
And then there's Joe over here who robbing banks. Now he's stealing, and I'm stealing.
Yeah.
We just stealing on two different levels, right?
But that's an extreme.
It's extreme, but I'm saying that to say sometimes we attract things, and it's things that person do, we do too. The thing we dislike in a person, sometimes we dislike it because it's something that we do. It's a sign to us to look within ourselves.
Yeah.
It's always about us. It's never really about the other person. When we can get clear within ourselves, then whatever else needs to happen will happen organically. We can't fix anybody else or anything, but if you're coming and you have doubts, then you have to explore what's going on within you.
Marilyn Osborne, this is the perfect segue to a perfect ending. That's deep, because my takeaway, folks, is you have to first know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, you have to go see someone like Marilyn to understand why you're attracting negative energy. And if you don't know, then you're forcing yourself to repeat a cycle,
right.
And you will never heal whatever it is inside that needs to be pulled up and healed.
Yeah.
Marilyn, any closing thoughts?
No, I think it's been a good session, a good conversation. Reminds me of some things for myself. So thank you. Very good session.
And if someone wants to get a session or two, you want to give your information out, where they can contact you?
Yeah, I can. You can put it on your web.
I would do that.
Your web page. Yeah, it'll be
Okay.
available there. Yeah.
All right, folks, thank you for tuning in, and I appreciate you supporting this podcast. If you want to continue to support this podcast, go to jumpingintolife.com. You can purchase merchandise. I have books that I wrote. They're self-help, and there's a link to Boris L. Henson Foundation, Taraji P. Henson's father. I have a link to their website. They provide phenomenal resources for people seeking mental health support. And so thank you, and until next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.